So here's a question. If you had to choose any 4 characters to be on your personal Mount Rushmore of video games, who would they be? It can be the ones you think are the coolest or the ones who are most important to you or whatever. One of mine definitely has to be Jak from Jak and Daxter. I won't go too far into the story of why I picked Jak to be on mine because it's kind of long and boring, but suffice it to say that there are specific reasons why I did, and more than just because I like the game. Jak and Daxter has a 90 on Metacritic. Like always, we're gonna rank the story, the characters, the music, visuals, and gameplay from the worst of the bunch to the best, and then pass an overall verdict at the end. Without any further delay, Jak and Daxter. In last place is music. Naughty Dog brought back the team that put together the soundtrack for Crash Bandicoot for Jak and Daxter, and the album was actually produced by the lead singer for Devo. I thought it was kind of interesting anyways. Jak and Daxter's soundtrack is a rhythmical blend of tropical and tribal beats that blend fluidly from track to track, and small variations for each theme kick in depending on where exactly you are in a level and who you're hanging out with, which is something I can't think of being done quite the same way before. It's pretty clever and fun to listen for. There are small hints of technological and futuristic sounds bouncing around the minimalistic tracks, which ends up being a nice reflection of Jak's world. It's a sparsely populated place, made up mostly of wooden huts and simple people, but you'll notice these huge, lurking ruins of an advanced civilization that existed before someone, or something, hit the world's reset button. The music complements the aesthetic of something primitive sprouting its way up through the remains of a future that had already existed in the past. The music's a little too comfortable playing its supporting role though, and there aren't really any memorable musical moments. Because they were trying to keep the songs on the minimalistic side of things, a lot of them end up sounding a little too similar to each other. There are a handful of good tracks and some really cool ideas, so the music gets 16 points out of 20, or a low B, 80% to be exact. If you were wondering. No one was wondering that, that's stupid. In 4th place is the story. Kinda like Galadriel does at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings movies, the Green Sage Samos delivers an unexpectedly poetic prelude as the game starts up, and it's clear that this is going to be a little bit bigger than you've come to expect these kinds of games to be. The journey to turn Daxter back into a human after he falls into a vat of dark eco turns into a Zorg-like plot to cover the land in that same dark eco. And it falls to Jak to stop a couple of corrupt sages from ruining everything. They're the kind of bad guys that I guess don't really consider the fact that reshaping the world entirely might potentially be a bad thing for them as well. Anyways, as a standalone game, the story of Jak and Daxter is disjointed and incomplete, as the game was always meant to be the first entry in a series. But I actually really liked the semi-fractured feeling of the plot. Through all the mystery pierces a story that doesn't really concern itself with anything more than just moving its simple narrative forward. It's like, you beat the bad guy, you get the girl, you save the world. Sweet. What you want to happen happens, and sometimes you just need that in a game. The one problem this causes for the story though is that there isn't much depth. Other than one small and half-expected twist, there aren't really any surprises. The story is mostly told through small interactions with other characters, and a lot of the story goes unsaid, transmitted subtly through the setting. It's a nice way to tell a story, I think. Another 16 points out of 20 feels like the right score. The characters come in 3rd. There's a palpable depth to the relationship and genuine history between the main cast of characters that's easy to pick up on, and a strong impression that you're catching only a glimpse of the life they'll be spending together. Take every opportunity you can to go back and talk with Samos and Kira, because what's communicated is a lot more than just direction for what you should be doing next in the game. The jibing and teasing and comfortable taunting that comes from years of rubbing shoulders with each other is kinda heartwarming in a way. Jak being a silent protagonist means that Daxter bears the brunt of interacting with the other characters. Daxter's meant to carry the comedic load of the game too, which he carries mostly well.
We won't find any more of that dark gooey eco stuff, will we? Cause I'd hate to fall in again and turn into you!
Get in there!
I'm much more glad that he's there than not, I guess is a good way of saying it. My favorite character interaction though is definitely between the silent Jak and Kira, whose budding romance is kinda innocent and endearing. Cute, for lack of a manlier word. And yep, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. The villains could have been really good if we'd spent more time in their company. Usually there's a cool dynamic at work when 2 villains team up, but we don't really see much of anything happening, including a reason for there to be 2 of them in the first place other than the fact that they're siblings. It tells me that there was originally a lot more planned for them, which if true is kinda too bad. The NPCs of the game run into the same problem. None of them have enough time on screen to be anything more than an item on a checklist of things to do to get another power cell. This isn't a huge problem, but compared to similar games that were released around the same time, the secondary tier of characters in Jak and Daxter just don't really bring much to the table. Like the villains, a lot of them have great personality, but end up ultimately underused. Their dialogue boils down to a please and a thank you, and not really a whole lot more than that. Overall, the characters get 17 points out of 20. In 2nd place is the gameplay. The best thing about it is easy to miss because of how smoothly it happens. The entire world is open and seamlessly connected, which makes getting immersed in the world more of an eventuality than an effort in suspending your disbelief. That means no loading screens. The platforming and collecting carrots takes you right along, and before you realize it, you're exactly where you need to be. And along with the open world is a great sense of how interconnected everything is. The stuff you do on one end of the map changes stuff all the way on the other, which is pretty cool, and there's a ton of variety in level design and missions. My favorite's the rapturesque underwater precursor city.
It is so choice.
I also think I need to talk about the rolling long jump move. A lot of other games have something similar, but nothing feels quite as good as this one does. I think every game from now on should have this move in it. I think RPGs need this move. Racing games, why not? Throw it in there. I think part of the reason I like it so much is the sort of iambic groove that you get into with your hands while you're roll jumping right into the next roll jump. It just physically feels nice to do with your hands. It's weird. And the bosses practically throw the fights. Honestly, it's like the expose your weakness and get hit 3 times strategy. Why do they always employ that strategy? All in all though, it's a solidly built platformer that feels really good to play and gets a score of 17.5 points out of 20. It's fun. It's fun. Lots of fun to play. Yeah. In first place is visuals. There's something serene about standing as a witness to the power of nature. The Earth turns in its own time, and its inhabitants are only along for a cosmically short ride. What's left of the overgrown and unexplained precursor civilization that lay in ruins under Jack's feet sets the stage for a story that transcends a single lifetime. I think that's beautiful. We're far from the first of our kind on the planet and not nearly the last, and adventures span from the beginning of time until all is forgotten. I think deep down we all know that in the end what matters isn't being remembered forever as a hero, but becoming the best that we can for no one but ourselves. And Jack lives that as his truth. He's not really out to save the world. He wants to go out and take whatever life has to offer and make it his own. It's something the setting of the game had me thinking about a lot this latest playthrough. But the life of an adventurer is a lonely one, and there are parts of the world of Jak and Daxter that are middle of the ocean lonely. Jak and Daxter's journey is one of discovery and danger, and setting foot into lands that hold no sign of life is sometimes kind of unsettling. There are parts of the game that are noticeably empty, and you can't help but get the feeling that the world is for the most part still uninhabited for a good reason. It's actually pretty amazing how good all the environments look from every angle. Almost everything is worth taking a closer look at, which makes every second of the adventure interesting. I touched on it before too, but the seamless transition from location to location make it seem like one big world and not just a bunch of separated levels. And if you look out over towards the horizon in some of the levels, you can see past and future places, which is a really cool touch. I do need to mention that I've been playing the HD re-release of Jak and Daxter, which, does make it look better, but I think a lot of what I said still stands for the original version. If by any chance you can get your hands on the HD version, I wholly recommend it, but I still think the original version still looks great. The visuals get 19 points out of 20, and holds a lot that I think everybody would find a joy to explore. Jak and Daxter is a game that doesn't really give itself too many opportunities to do anything wrong, but that means it plays it a little bit too safe sometimes. It's always at least one solid step above average in each category, but sometimes it settles for being great instead of amazing. Our score of 85.5 points is just a touch more than 3 points away from the 90 Metacritic has it at, so we have to say that it's just a touch overrated. But that's not going to stop me from playing it every year or so and loving every single minute of it. Hey, thanks for watching. Tell us how you'd rank the game's different parts of the game overall. We'd like to know. Or give us a list of your personal Mount Rushmore of characters. That'd be cool too. And here are a couple of our other videos you can check out. You might like them.